G'day, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be telling you how you can save thousands, like legit thousands, on your wedding. So the first tip. Now this one may seem a bit controversial, but pick a weekday wedding. Now I know that sounds insane, but if you are on a small budget, you can literally save thousands. Now, I chose to do a Monday wedding. I first wasn't actually looking at doing a weekday. We were just looking at Saturdays, and when we were talking to reception venue, it slipped out us asking how much would it cost to do a weekday, and literally it was like a third of the price, and then we could take things out of the package, which you couldn't do before that. So we literally, I don't know actually if I'll release how much we saved, but yeah, it was a third of the reception price to do it on a Monday. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is pick what is important to you and what isn't. Spend the money on what is important, and things that aren't as much, that's when you can go a bit more. Not stingy, but you just don't really prioritize the money for it. Such as for me, a car wasn't that important, so we just got a family friend's car that was pretty vintage, instead of spending hundreds on getting a car. Tip number three, be less fussy. This one is so hard because you see all these amazing Pinterest boards and like weddings online, and they're just so beautiful, and then you just start thinking, oh, I want this and that and that. It's really hard because a lot of these people have huge budgets. I'm meaning like hundreds of thousands. So being less fussy also means you appreciate the things you do get. So such as if you get a florist, you appreciate that you didn't have to do your flowers yourself. So really being less fussy and more grateful for each thing you get will actually make your wedding such a better experience for you. Number four, find vendors who do weekday deals. This one was amazing because there were so many companies that would offer deals because I was doing a weekday wedding. And even outside the reception venue, you can save thousands once again on photography, videography, just like things like the photo booth. We looked into that and they offered a much cheaper deal. Just so many different companies. As well as a bonus of doing a weekday is it's so much easier to plan your wedding. Like I really did a lot of the bookings really slowly and very chilled and tried to find the perfect company that I wanted. And that was because it was a Monday, so I knew I had time that not many people were going to book that day out in advance. So my photographer, hairdresser, they're at least the two I already know that booked out like over a year before my wedding. And like it was all booked out that sort of time. So me having a Monday meant that I got my dream vendors without having to have a huge engagement time. So if you have a friend with a semi-professional camera, get them to take photos outside the photography time, and inside if you want a little extra photos. This means for things like dancing and those sort of things that don't really need a professional photographer. They're just sort of to remember the moment. Don't waste a couple of extra hundred on extending your photography budget. Just get a friend to do it. The photos may not be as professional, but who really needs professional ones of getting down on the dance floor? Tip number 6 is utilize your friends. Your friends want to help. So often friends would offer to help us with different things, and they'd offer it as their wedding present or just as a nice act of service, and it literally saved us hundreds. The car was a friend driving it, didn't cost us anything. Our cake was made by one of our beautiful friends and she did it for us as a wedding present. Just so many different things. Like I'd constantly be hanging out with friends. Oh, that and like, how can we help? What can we do? Don't be shy to ask them to do something. I would say though, if they're not invited to reception, it can be a bit awkward. I only asked reception friends or any offers that reception friends gave. I only took up theirs, not ceremony only, just because I felt like it would have been awkward. But if you don't find that awkward, go ahead and utilize your friends' skills. Oh, this next one's really hard. Limit your guest list. This one I literally cried about multiple times when doing it. we did our guest list, we wrote everyone's names on cue cards, and we started out with a big number, and we just had to slowly take away until it fit within our budget. So we still had a pretty good budget, but receptions, everything in weddings are still expensive. Even we're doing a weekday, they're just expensive. And so for us, really limiting ourselves, we just really picked sort of our friends. It was really hard. We did a lot more family, like I prioritized family, so most of my invites were family, and then I had 2 family friends and their kids, most of their kids, and then I think it was 10 to 15 friends. So yeah, it was tough, but it's still, like, it saved us a lot of money, and our friends were really understanding, knowing we're both uni students. But that one can definitely save you. Like, if you're paying $100 a head and you have limit your friend list by 10, there's $1,000. So it does save you money quickly, but it is super painful at the same time. Number 8, have your cake as your dessert instead of buying a dessert. So I bought a dessert package as well because I am a sweet tooth. But in the end, I think we could have just gone the cake. It would have saved us almost $1,000. It was quite expensive to have desserts, but I think in the end our cake was delicious. Like, our friend who made it made like the most beautiful cake. We had chocolate cake, and then we have white chocolate and raspberry, which is like my favorite. So at least for us, because we had a friend making the cake, it probably would have saved us, and we probably could have just done the cake as our only dessert, and that would have been another great saving. Number 9, now this one is a controversial one as well, but don't send out save the dates. And I say that because sending out save the dates, one, locks in guests, or at least makes them think they're a guest, which makes it really disappointing if they're not invited to reception. So we've had it where we've been invited to a save the date, and then you don't actually invite to reception. You probably wouldn't have planned time off, as well as other people planning, especially if they're interstate and they get to save the date and they plan a flight just for a ceremony. That is a big cost on them and really disappointing at the same time. So we chose not to do save the dates, as well as we had a year engagement. So our guest list we would constantly work on, and it changed from when we started to get engaged until right before the wedding. So it kind of locks you in on which guests you've got to have, or makes it awkward. So for us, we saved a couple $100 on not sending out save the dates, not getting a photo shoot to send out save the dates. So for us, it saved quite a couple $100, and for us, it was worth it. I think this was the toughest saver we did for our wedding. We did a no +1. So we let married couples, so if they were married, we gave them their partner. But if they weren't married, we did not do +1s until second round offers. When people said they couldn't make it, we filled in 2 spots. But it was really tough for us because most of our friends were in a relationship, and because of our limited numbers, I only had 10 to 15, and I think Isaac was the same, he had about 15 friends. So when they all have a +1, that's 30 each. So we would have had to half our friend list to 7 friends and 7 +1s to be able to get that 15 number, or we just not invite +1s. It was tough. We had, for the first day invitations came out, the amount of messages we got, I got, my parents got, we just were getting questions about why is our +1 invited? I think you forgot to write them on the invitation. Things like that was, just really awkward because we just had to explain they could come to the ceremony, but we just couldn't fit them for reception. So it was tough. It was really, really tough and a bit awkward, but at the same time, we would have loved to invite them, but we couldn't afford it. And for us, that saved us, about 7 friends each, because pretty much, all of our guest lists were in a relationship. So, it's adding up the costs. But it was definitely, if you choose to do that, is such a tough decision. So I'll leave that up to you. We did it. I probably would still do it again with what that extra money allowed us to do. And we were at reception capacity, so we couldn't physically fit any more than we had, but I'll leave that up to you if you think that's a good idea or not. Number 11 is make your own invitations. We made our own, all invitations, engagement party, kitchen tea, and wedding. We didn't send out ceremony invitations, we just sent a message out. We just did reception. I'll have to find a picture up and link it below or put it up on the screen of what our invitations look like. But they were beautiful, and honestly the amount of people who said they were the best wedding invitations they've ever seen, and they were pretty cheap to make in comparison to getting someone else to make them. So if you'd like to see how I made the invitations, comment below and I might make a video on it. But that saved us so much money of just making our own invitations. Next one is get your bridal party to pay for their own dress and suit and their hair and makeup. So this one was tough as well because you really don't like giving them the extra cost. But because I had 5 bridesmaids and Isaac had 5 groomsmen, it is a lot to spend on them, especially when the suits, a lot of really nice suits are up in the $400 range, and bridesmaid dresses are quite a couple of $100 as well. But they get to keep their suits. So our suits we picked because they had detachable lapels so that the guys could reuse them. And yeah, the girls, they were all really good at paying their own dresses and makeup, and once again that saved thousands. Between 5 each in our bridal party, it saved us a couple of thousand. Tip number 13, and as a bridal hairstylist, this is what I recommend. Either get one bridesmaid to get their hair trial or none. Sometimes people come to me and want their whole bridal party to get a hair trial, but it's a waste of money. If you're wanting matching hairstyles or even a bit different, it doesn't really matter what the bridesmaids look like. We've got the time. It's more important the bride gets a trial, and if you're wanting matching maybe one bridesmaid to see how the look will go next to your own hairstyle, but don't waste the money on getting every single one in your bridal party a trial, because you're just chucking money out the window. So it's really not worth it, and that's coming from a hairstylist. Tip number 14 is use the bridesmaids' bouquets as decorations. So what we did, we had at the reception some vases that went on the bridal table, and we physically put the bouquets in them and they became centerpieces. So that saved us like a couple of $100, because by the time we spent money on getting 5 bridesmaids and myself bouquets, that's a bit of a waste by the end of the night. But then using that money to make into decorations, they were really only half the cost because they were half bouquet and half decoration. So I'll try and find a picture and put it up on the screen to what they looked like, but it looked really pretty and it just helped keep the theme going throughout the night. Tip number 15 is kind of related to that. Reuse your ceremony decorations at your reception. So for me, pretty much all my decorations went from the ceremony to reception, which is why I had a morning to nighttime wedding so that my family had time to move all of the decorations from the ceremony to reception. But I'll put heaps of pictures up on the screen somewhere. But we had vases with some white flowers in it, and then we took them across and then they were our centerpieces, and just heaps of different things like that. Obviously we had a few things like tulle that we kept at both locations. But yeah, reusing those decorations just meant that we could spend so much more. And that's because we set a budget for decorations, for ceremony and reception. But if you join the budget together and reuse, you can actually buy just so many more decorations. And we did a lot of DIYs, so a lot of our decorations my mum painted or found from the cheap shop. I think even one of our centerpieces was a punch bowl that she painted to make look like an urn. So she is incredible. Like, I'll have to get a video where she shows you just how she DIY'd, because she was fully in charge of my decorations. I didn't have to worry about it. But yeah, having that double locations just saved us so much money, and it wasn't too hard. The decorations we picked were pretty easy to transport, and they're already kind of set up. So yeah, it was pretty easy to move across, and yeah, definitely a great way to save money. Tip number 16, now I didn't personally do this tip because I kind of just fell in love with my dress, and the dress was something on my really important list of like something I've dreamt about my whole life. But a good consideration is to buy a second-hand dress, and that's because these dresses are only worn once and they're a couple of $1,000s. Now, a great website is Still White, and you can actually look up the dress code on there and find the exact dress you tried on in a store for a second-hand price. So I will put the link below. I think it is an amazing website. I looked at it, I have showed my friends it who are getting married. I did try on a dress and try and find it, and I couldn't find it on there, which is then when I bought a brand new dress, which ended up being a bit different to the first one. But yeah, it's a great website, and you can still use Facebook Marketplace, all different things, but buying a second-hand dress can save you, at least $1,000, and you can still find that dream dress you tried on in the store. If you do look at Still White, there is a chance that dress will be there. So that's, a definitely big way to save. Tip number 17 is don't give favours. Now, favours are like those little gifts people normally give at the end of a wedding. In my experience with every wedding I've been to, I've never seen many favours gone. Like, there's been ones where there've been lollies, there's been like personalised wooden of like your name. Oh, there's been just all different little gifts like sweets. Besides if it's chocolate that people eat on the night, most of the time they are leftover. So for me, I decided that I wasn't going to spend a couple of $100s on buying. I think I had 125 guests, and if they're $2 each, you're looking at being a couple of $100. And the more guests you have, the more expensive it's going to be. So for me, it wasn't a priority. So instead, they just got a really nice name place card that they could keep, which in the end, most people didn't keep anyway. So that's another way to save. Tip number 18 is if you can't afford a full videography package, is see if they'll do a raw footage package. Now this means you'll just get the whole raw footage by itself, and then later on when you're a bit more financially saved up a bit, you can go and get it edited later. And this can save you quite a couple $100. I looked into this by getting different quotes, and it did save quite a bit, especially if you look at someone newly starting out. The prices can be really reasonable. However, my uncle actually used to be a wedding videographer, and he offered to do it for us as our wedding present. So in the end, we didn't get we didn't pay for a videographer, but we definitely did look into getting just the raw footage, and it was substantially cheaper. So once again, you can get that dream wedding video just maybe for your 1-year anniversary when you've had time to repay all the wedding bills and get a bit more financial. The next one is, instead of paying like $500 to $1,000 for a photo booth, just get a Polaroid camera and go on eBay and buy Polaroids. I think they ended up being like 70 cents a photo when I bought them in bulk online. And I just had a friend who has a Polaroid, and she just walked around taking pictures of people, taking pictures of our cake, of our venue, of speeches, all different sort of moments, the dancing. And so I thought, I don't know if you'll be able to see them, but here's just a few. They're so nice to have. I think they're a lot lighter in person, but they're hard to see. Here's another one. You can see that. They're so nice to have. Okay, refocus. So worth getting a friend. If they have a Polaroid, just buy them the film. And we literally got like 100 pictures, and it's just one of my favorite things because I love looking at them. I love Polaroids. And it only ended up costing, I think we bought, it wasn't much at all. I think I maybe spent $70 in total to buy all the film, and that covered like so many Polaroid pictures that I just love so much. So that will save you quite a couple of $100. Last tip I have for you today is don't have an afternoon tea after your ceremony. This one's really tough, and I really struggled not doing an afternoon tea because so many people now expect it. But if you're looking at saving a couple of $1,000, this is a great way to do it. You're double feeding people. If you're paying for them at the reception to have a sit-down meal, it's really hard paying for those exact same people to have an afternoon tea or a morning tea. it was definitely a tough decision. I know what my friend did instead of, because she couldn't afford an afternoon tea as well, instead of just not having one like I did, she just messaged around about 20 different girls and got them all to bring a slice or something to eat, and that worked really well. That fed, I reckon it was at least 100 guests. So that could definitely be a great way to save, because yeah, they can really add up afternoon tea, especially if you get a caterer, or if you do it yourself. Ingredients cost so much money, and especially if you've got a lot of pop-ins or ceremony only guests as well, you could have so many turn up to your wedding. It's really hard to cater for them all, and especially put that within the budget. So I hope this was helpful. Sorry the video was so long, but there's so much to cover. I hope that you can use some of these tips and save a lot of money. If you would like to see more videos, subscribe. And if you'd like to see more of my wedding hairstyles that I do, go check out my Instagram. I'll put it in the description box. And if you, for some reason, want to see stuff of my personal life, I'll also leave that in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye!